The king with a mission to, as the official phrasing puts it, reaffirm and renew then that special relationship. Well, let's analyse that with our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert, who's with me here on set. I mean, Doug, let's face it, it's a pretty tricky visit this at a very tense moment, would you say?
Yeah, and it's not me saying it. Half of Britain, literally, 49% of Britons were surveyed last month by YouGov, just as this visit was being announced. And what did they say about it? Well, almost half, 49%, said they wanted it canceled. They don't think their king, their monarch, should have anything to do with a president that is seen from Britain as erratic and unpredictable, and perhaps ready to fire some humiliating salvos across the bow at their monarch, at their head of state. They just don't want to be a part of that. They don't want to put the king into that sort of line of fire. Now, the one perhaps reassurance for the Britons who said they wanted this visit canceled this morning is that the White House has apparently reportedly agreed that the two men, when they meet together, that meeting will be held off camera. So we are not going to get any Zelensky moments in this encounter. And that's not to say that Donald Trump won't perhaps be on his best behavior, because we do know of his high reverence for royalty. He was enamored of Queen Elizabeth, and he reportedly has a very good relationship and fondness for King Charles, even though they apparently had King Charles lectured him too much when Charles was at Windsor last year about climate change, and he came out and he was a little miffed at how long he was lectured. But they have a good relationship. But it is a very tense visit. I will say that there's one veteran American political strategist. His name is Steve Schmidt. He's on the steering committee of a pro-democracy group that's called Save America. And what did he say? This is his words, right? And you might say it's extreme, but he likened King Charles's visit to Trump to that of King Charles's great uncle, the Duke of Windsor, who you might know, Stuart. I see you nodding sort of knowingly. The Duke of Windsor was the former Edward VIII, the king who abdicated. What did the Duke of Windsor do, the ex-king? In 1937, he visited Adolf Hitler. A notorious visit. Now, you might say it's extreme, likening King Charles, a now reigning monarch, visiting Donald Trump to that of a duke visiting Adolf Hitler in 1937. But he basically says, Steve Schmidt, his point is that the optics are bad. And he says, basically, you're putting the king in a position where he is becoming a tool of White House propaganda and a potential butt of humiliation as well, and that the king should have no part of it. So it's a tense visit, obviously coming as Trump is in the midst of an extremely unpopular, with Americans, Iran war, jitters about the economy, and also questions within his own movement about a president who seems to be left and right alienating allies, scoffing at them, and firing shots across the bow at just about everyone he crosses. Difficult visit.
Perhaps the crucial part of it will come in his address to Congress, King Charles. I mean, of course, it's completely scripted, isn't it? But that's going to be central to this?
Yes, and we're talking about it, right? Look, first of all, a British monarch addressing a joint section, both chambers of commerce, Stuart, is a rare occurrence. It's happened one other time. The last time it happened was when his mother, Queen Elizabeth, back in 1991, going back 35 years, yes, a different era, Stuart, she addressed a joint session. And why did it take so long from the American Revolution to 1991? Because Congress wanted no part. They were not ready to have a British monarch step up before them, even over 200 years after they wrote their Declaration of Independence and fired it against George III, an 18th century king. They still had not been comfortable with the idea of any successor to George III addressing them, but they took it. And what's interesting is, like I said, a different era. It was a hostile, it was still a combative, volatile era. America was fresh under George H.W. Bush in 91, from the Gulf War. You remember, George H.W. Bush had cobbled together a 42-nation international coalition, which then got the blessing of the United Nations to, quote, liberate free Kuwait from Iraq's then occupation of Kuwait. They were fresh from that. It was a successful military operation, and that is the context in which the Queen stepped up to the joint section of Congress and said these notable words.
Some people believe that power grows from the barrel of a gun. So it can, but history shows that it never grows well, nor for very long. Force in the end is sterile. We have gone a better way. Our societies rest on mutual agreement, on contract, and on consensus.
Stuart, could you imagine King Charles in a few hours'
Saying
time
that now.
saying those same words?
Suspect not.
Yeah, force, can never be imposed from the barrel of a gun. It doesn't grow well. Yes, a very different Congress that he's going to be stepping up before, a Congress that is bitterly polarized, divided, hostile, and mainly Trumpist right now. So it's a very difficult act. How does he do it? How do you smooth the so-called strained special relationship, avoid political controversy, and at the same time, as Ro Khanna, who's a congressman from the state of California, Democrat, said, basically without rubber stamping Donald Trump's whims. How do you do that? How do you avoid the controversy? How do you assert your own political convictions, in a sense, and send a clear message without ruffling the feathers of a notoriously ruffable president? It's going to be difficult, and he's not going to do it. What he's not going to do, you won't hear about the Epstein files. You're not going to hear about the controversy of the Falkland Islands. You're going to hear him probably reiterate the, quote, shared democratic values woven into the fabric of the UK and US over their 250-year history, because let's not forget this visit is on the eve of America's 250th independence anniversary. He's going to talk about, yes, acknowledge, yes, we have had our differences over the time, but this is the greatest alliance in history, perhaps, and we have known how to come together even in rough patches. So I'll try to accentuate the positive, but like I said, King Charles isn't a shrinking violet, and even though the king isn't there to go into the political fray, this is not a political visit. He's not there. He's there to look at the big picture, the broad picture. He still is probably going to send a subtle message, at least, about those democratic values at a very difficult time when many in America see democracy as being under threat. I will say one thing I said in the beginning. Few people would envy King Charles, his mission right now. He's not coming, despite what you might hear in some reports, out of some love for Donald Trump or a great relationship with him. Forget all that. He's coming at the behest of his prime minister, Keir Starmer. He's coming at the behest of the government. This is a government-mandated mission to try to smooth relations in a very ruffled relationship.
I still can't get over watching that clip that it was the 1990s. It looks like something out of the 1970s.
Yeah.
That's probably my age
I added
showing. My age showing, exactly. Just finally, Doug, I mean,
Yeah.
Britons are really biting their nails over this as well. You alluded to it at the top there, but
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of opposition, isn't there?
There's a lot of opposition because, as I said, they don't really see the purpose of this visit. I mentioned that YouGov poll last month in which 49% of Britons are opposed to the visit. What's also interesting, another stat from that poll, 53%, which is a clear majority of Britons, don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And this is what, you don't have to be much of a skeptic to say it. Here we are talking about the visit. A week from now, are we even going to really remember it happened? Is it going to matter? Especially with someone like Donald Trump. The feeling with a lot of people is you've seen Keir Starmer grovel, extending those invitations, 2 state visits for Trump to Britain, all of this. And what's happened as a result? Trump comes right back at you on an impulse, on a whim, when he perceives he was turning against him. So he's basically called Starmer a coward for not joining his war of choice against Iran. He's belittled Britain's Navy, Donald Trump has, calling the Navy ships toys. All of this stuff. There's this sense that no matter how much you wine and dine and you flatter and cajole him, the next day, if you say anything that he doesn't like, all of that's forgotten. All the good stuff's forgotten. He'll turn against you again on impulse, on whim. And that is, I think, what has a lot of Britons a little bit on edge about this visit. They feel like the king, stiff upper lip, going there to serve country, do his mission, do his job on behalf of the prime minister. And yet in the end, he's putting himself in the line of fire. And it's a very uncomfortable diplomatic tightrope act right now.
Doug, thanks very much. Doug Herbert, international affairs commentator here on France 24.